Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, all my apologies for moving to your state. You're now officially my senator, but I will take you over Chuck Schumer any day of the week. And the people have been nothing but warm, gracious, and welcoming to me. It's great to finally make the choice to move down here, and I'm glad to be here. I love the state of Florida. Let's get your reaction to Biden finally showing up at the border.
Well, 6.2 million people later. That's what's happened in the last 3 years since he's taken over. There's 6.2 million people in this country illegally that he released. And so you take 6.2 million people from anywhere on the planet or anywhere, and you put them, and some percentage of them are going to be criminals. We're seeing that now. In particular, we're seeing members of a vicious gang that left Venezuela, and they were terrorizing people in Peru. They were terrorizing people in Colombia. They were terrorizing people in Ecuador. And now they've started to make their way into the United States. And just the last week, just today, it was announced that a migrant here illegally released by Biden has sex charges filed against him, and the victim is 14 years old. You've highlighted this horrible murder in Georgia. You've seen the crime on the streets in New York and in Chicago, and it's only going to get worse. These people aren't committing crimes because they're migrants. They're committing crimes because they're criminals, and they're just allowing them to release them right into the country. And then sometimes they're interacting with law enforcement, like in the case of the murderer in Georgia. He was actually arrested in New York, and they released him. They let him go. There was a bench warrant out for him at the time of this murder. So the president has to answer for all of this. And the way he fixes this is by reinstalling the Trump policies that enforce the law. But he won't do it because it would require him to admit that Trump was right. And so we're going to continue with this mess. And God forbid Joe Biden is reelected. 4 more years of this, we're going to have 10, 12, 15 million people released into this country. This is not immigration. We got to stop calling it immigration. It's not immigration. This is a mass migration. This is an invasion of the country. No other country in the world would tolerate it. And we are paying the price for it right now in real time with real American victims.
And we saw this again. We saw this with this young nursing student in Georgia. I can only imagine how this girl's family feels. You don't ever recover from something like that. But there's an even greater danger. I mean, we've been chronicling all of the people coming from countries like Iran, #1 state sponsor of terror, their satellites, Syria, Egypt, the home of the Muslim Brotherhood, Afghanistan, home of al-Qaeda, our #1, #2 geopolitical foe, China, Russia. We have tens and tens of thousands. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, Senator, to figure out that not all of them are coming from these hostile regimes because they want a better life for themselves and their family. You have to assume that among the nearly 10 million, when you add in all the gotaways, et cetera, you've got to assume that many of them not being vetted are part of have radical associations, and they are in this country. And I would argue terror cells are being formed and have been formed, and they're plotting and planning and scheming what could be a 9/11 or worse. I'd like to think that I'm wrong, but I know in my heart I am not wrong. And we're going to wake up one morning and we're going to realize that this president's policies have resulted in the deaths of thousands of Americans. How do we stop that? How do we find these people, vet them, and deport them?
But the problem is you can't vet them because it's not like these people are coming. In some cases, they're coming with fake documents. In other cases, these documents are produced in countries that will sell you a fake document without your real identity. That's the fundamental problem when you allow people to come in like this. You're absolutely right. Look, I don't need to disclose anything to tell you. Common sense tells you this. ISIS, al-Qaeda, Hezbollah all have desires to, we know that the Iranians are trying to assassinate former leaders in the Trump administration in this country right now. Every one of them is aware that the largest migratory smuggling operation in the history of the world is operating right on the border of the United States. It's allowed 6 million people in. These people are aware of that, and they are aware that if they send somebody here with a fake document or with a document with the wrong name on it because they bought some passport somewhere in the Western Hemisphere, they're going to be able to get into the country and stay. You're absolutely right. Something terrible is going to happen. It's just a matter of time now. I hope that I'm wrong. I really, truly do for the sake of our country. But you can't let in 6, what will be in by the end of this year, probably 10 million people or 9 million people into the country and not expect that among them there aren't going to be lots of criminals and lots of terrorists, unfortunately. And that's what we're facing. And that's why you can't have mass migration.
And the worst part of all of it, it was 3 years. Joe, the vice president, Alejandro Mayorkas, Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki, oh, the border's secure, the border's closed. They flat out were lying to the American people, and we were showing the images, proving that they're lying, and they kept up that charade. Only now that it's a political issue in an election year, oh, Joe will make the trip down to the border. It is meaningless. Because these are not the policies he really supports. If he wanted a secure border, he could have brought back the policies that he got rid of in the first 100 days when he was in office with the stroke of a pen. He doesn't need the help of Congress. He can reinstitute the policies that Trump had that were working. He won't do it, will he?
He won't, because he has a radical base in his party that believes in open borders and that believes it's inhumane to return anybody back. He has turned the exceptions of all laws into the rule, and the result is 6.2 million people and climbing every single day, and we're heading in a bad direction. Something bad's going to happen. It really is, and it's unfortunate, and it'll be Joe Biden's fault.